Burn boss to Mayor Run crew on Elliott Repeater. We're canceling the burn for today. I'd like folks to mobilize to drop point 16 for after action review at 12:30.
Finding the right conditions to actually go out and burn is one of the most difficult parts of the job.
Control burns, they don't just start on the day of the burn.
A lot of stars have to align for us to burn. Different levels of approval. The weather has to be just right. The wind direction, humidity isn't too low, but you also want to make sure it's not too high. It's a delicate dance.
The people participating, they're highly trained, from burn boss down to your igniters on the ground. There's a lot of thought and preparation. It requires a lot of attention to detail, a lot of focus on safety, and a lot of focus on what our desired ecological effects are. That's not a light task. That's a lot to think about.
We know from both historical records and science that fire was a really regular part of this landscape. So fire might have rolled through any mountainside in the Appalachians every 5 to 7 years on average. Much of that was driven by indigenous peoples who knew the benefits of putting fire on the landscape, keeping fire on the landscape. There also would have been lightning fires that started. We would have had a lot of much bigger trees. We would have also had really open rolling areas with lots of grasses on the understory.
Fires really shaped what our forests in Western Virginia look like. And we removed fire from those systems back in the early 1900s because of a bunch of big fires out west. The national agencies and the state agencies decided that we didn't want fire on the landscape, so they removed it.
Majority of the public, when they see fire, they think of catastrophic wildfires, right? Like it's scorched earth. When we're introducing prescribed fire, we do so under certain parameters that we can, in a way, control the fire so that we can really zero in and get the type of habitat that we're looking for.
You know, we're using the best science, the best knowledge we have to justify putting that fire back on the landscape. In these landscapes that we know historically had it, we have a lot of closed canopy, mature forests right now, and there's not a lot of diversity landscape-wide in the forest understory. And so I see fire as one of our biggest tools to be able to add that diversity back on the landscape, that mosaic of habitat types.
Part of my job is just the networking and building the partnership. These burns don't just happen without a lot of planning, time, effort, and relationship building. We do that at all different levels. We've got to have relationships essentially top to bottom. We did our first cooperative burn. It's 150 acres up on top of the mountain. And then we did that burn back in 2008. And since then, we've scaled up to be able to do these 6,000 or 7,000 acre burn units. We've been planting Blue Panther probably since early 2021. It's a complicated unit. There's ridges on both sides of it. There's a big mountain in the middle. There's a creek. There's roads. Mare Run, it's a long, skinny burn unit along the top of the mountain. And we used to just do it by itself. The great thing about this partnership is we did burn Mare Run really as a control line. We've got 900 acres up on the top of the mountain that we've already burned, so that when we did do a burn that was below it, if the fire did start to come up the mountain a little bit, it runs into that black, but there's no available fuel. It just creates a huge margin of safety.
So on a controlled burn, I am holding a position called the agency administrator. So in the planning stages, we're making sure that our specialists, like our wildlife biologists and foresters, that all of their feedback is appropriately embedded in the plan. And then as we move closer to implementation, I'm working with the burn boss to make sure that firefighter and public safety are still the most important considerations.
What goes into being a burn boss is making sure that when we put up 6,500 acres on fire, that one, that stays in the line. Two, that the smoke that comes out of the prescribed burn doesn't negatively impact any of the local communities. Three, just making sure that we have everything not only that we need for the day, but also if there is something that doesn't go quite right, that we have contingency resources that aren't engaged on the fire, but that are there to help us out if need be.
We're out here burning because we want to keep the Appalachians on a trajectory towards being a really diverse region. We're also looking at climate resiliency. So a diverse fire-adapted landscape is more resilient to the impacts of climate change.
You know, that mountain is very rugged. Sending hand igniters across the mountainside would just be unnecessary exposure.
We incorporate both drones and helicopters during the ignition process.
We use PSDs, which are plastic sphere dispensers, and basically it's a chemical reaction that produces heat and then ignition on the ground. So we can use that machine to very efficiently drop balls, determining how quickly the fire grows together and like what kind of intensity and severity it produces on the landscape.
You know, the interesting thing about prescribed fire is, you know, the focus goes on to the day of the burn, but there's kind of 3 steps to it. There's the before the fire that gets all the attention, and then most importantly is the monitoring of those fire effects post-fire to make sure that we are meeting the objectives of what we set out to do.
So what that means is we'll go in and we take measurements pre-burn. So before we even burn a unit, we'll go in and look at what the vegetation looks like. How much underbrush have we got? How much grass have we got? How many small trees have we got? What species are they? How many large trees have we got? And then immediately after a burn, we'll go back in, take the exact same measurements. We return 2 years after the burn, and then again 5 years after the burn. We always want to go back and evaluate the work that we're doing, making sure the outcomes that we are shooting for, we're actually achieving.
Here, what I see is that it's cradle to grave working together. We plan projects together, we're sharing research, we're out shoulder to shoulder preparing for controlled burns, we're implementing day of, and then after the fact, we're monitoring and we're looking at the results of our controlled burns together and saying, hey, what can we do differently next time to get even better results?
We have a shared vision. Working with the partners in the state and federal agencies is undoubtedly the best part of my job. We really are increasing the pace and scale of fire. We're doing bigger and bigger burns, 7,000 acres. It's a huge accomplishment. It wouldn't be possible without our partners, but we have to go bigger. This is a bit of a race against time.
The controlled burn partnership that we have is allowing us to work at a larger scale. The people are the best part of this partnership. These people just really care about what they're doing and they have a passion for it, and I think that that passion is translating into really cool outcomes.
The Appalachians is our home. Many of us fire practitioners grew up here, and this fire is happening in so many people's backyards, and it's a cool story. We've lost our relationship with fire, and I would love to see, not just with fire practitioners, but all of us who really value this place, get more curious about what we're doing. If you ask people about some of their most treasured memories here in the Appalachians that we call home, it's, waking up at 5 a.m. to go turkey hunting, or, spending a day paddling the river and looking at belted kingfishers and getting a glimpse of mink. And this forest is just it's such a meaningful place to so many people. We're going to have a hard time continuing to have a deep relationship with this land if we don't ask questions about this land's deep relationship with fire.